Welcome to This Explainer. Okay, today we're diving straight into a mental experiment that sounds, honestly, incredibly simple on paper, but it quickly unravels into one of the most fascinating mysteries of the human mind. I mean, have you ever actually wondered what happens when you try to completely shut off your brain? Well, we are going to explore exactly that.
Right off the bat, I want you to try this with me. If you're in a safe place to do so, go ahead and close your eyes. Now, for the next few seconds, I want you to try to think about absolutely nothing. And I mean total, absolute silence. No passing thoughts, no mental images. Definitely no inner voice talking inside your head. Just create total silence. Okay, what happens? If you're like virtually every human being on the planet, the moment you demand absolute silence, your mind immediately gets significantly louder. It's almost comical how fast it happens, right? The exact emptiness you ask for is just instantly flooded with noise.
The instruction was just 3 little words. Just don't think. It sounds so incredibly simple, but the reality is, the moment you try to enforce this rule, your brain basically hits the panic button and does the exact opposite. Instead of a peaceful void, random ideas just rush in. Suddenly you're wondering, what you're having for dinner later, or some random cringe memory from 10 years ago surfaces out of nowhere, or you're just intensely thinking about the fact that you are trying so hard not to think. Your mind flat out refuses to stay silent.
So, let's look at part 1, the hyperactive brain, and why silence just isn't your natural state. So why is it so ridiculously hard to think about nothing? To really understand this, we have to look at the underlying mechanics of what our minds are literally built to do. See, your brain never truly stops. Even when you're just resting, maybe sitting quietly on a couch staring at a wall, your brain is doing heavy lifting. It's constantly processing new information from your environment. It's actively replaying memories from your past, and it is relentlessly generating new thoughts. Why? Because the brain is, at its core, a survival machine. It's designed to keep you alive by predicting the future, and it predicts that future by constantly analyzing your environment and replaying your past. That takes massive amounts of processing power. Your brain is constantly generating scenarios, assessing risks, and just wandering through possibilities just in case you need that information later on. It proves that relentless activity, not silence, is the brain's default natural state. Expecting it to just power down while you're awake is kind of like expecting your lungs to pause just because you aren't currently running.
Which brings us to part 2. The don't think paradox, and the trap of monitoring your mind. Now this is where things get truly fascinating. When we demand mental silence, we unknowingly set this inescapable trap for ourselves. The very moment you say to yourself, don't think about anything, you've given your brain a specific task. And because it has a task, it starts operating on a feedback loop. It actually has to act as a task manager, constantly checking on its own progress to see if it's succeeding. So your brain asks, am I thinking? But here's the crucial catch. Checking your progress is, in itself, a brand new thought. You've broken your own rule just by trying to enforce it. Creating a negative constraint, like telling yourself not to do something, requires an active, continuous monitoring process that completely ruins the very silence you're trying to achieve in the first place.
It's the classic white bear problem. If I tell you right now, whatever you do, do not think about a white bear, what instantly pops into your head? A white bear. By telling your brain to actively ignore something, you pretty much guarantee that it becomes your absolute sole focus. The command to suppress the thought is the exact trigger that creates the thought. And why does this happen? Well, because your brain has to hold the concept of a white bear in its working memory just to know what it's supposed to be avoiding. It has to keep that bear actively loaded in your mental RAM so it can continuously check, hey, am I thinking about the bear? Yes? Okay, stop. It's an endless, totally self-defeating cycle.
This crucial point is captured perfectly in this analogy. Trying to stop thoughts completely is like trying to stop your heartbeat. I mean, think about that for a second. Most of your thoughts are entirely out of your active control. They just appear automatically. You don't sit there and consciously select your next passing thought from a menu before it arrives. Because if you did, you'd never actively choose to feel anxious right before bed, right? Or dwell on some awkward interaction you had with the cashier 5 years ago. Thoughts just show up uninvited. The brain is an organ designed to generate thoughts, exactly like the heart is an organ designed to pump blood. You simply can't command a biological organ to halt its primary function.
All right, let's move to part 3, the reality of a quiet mind and what actually happens instead. So if achieving absolute nothingness is literally a biological impossibility, you might be sitting there wondering, well, what's the point of trying to quiet the mind at all? Let's shift our focus from this impossible goal of a blank void to the highly achievable, super comforting reality of what a truly quiet mind actually feels like. See, when you sit down and practice mindfulness, your mind doesn't go blank, but a really beautiful process does happen. First, your thoughts begin to slow down just slightly.
They lose that frantic, rapid-fire pace. Second, the gaps, those empty spaces between one thought ending and another beginning, they start to increase. And this is a profound shift. Instead of a massive traffic jam of overlapping ideas, you start to experience brief moments of open road. And third, as a result of those wider gaps, your overall awareness becomes so much stronger. We aren't actually removing thinking, we're just dramatically increasing our ability to notice it happening, rather than just being swept away by the current.
And this helps us demystify a really common misconception. When people talk about deep meditation, the myth is that they're just turning their brains off entirely, like they're floating in some sort of empty, dark vacuum. But in reality, deep meditation is simply a calm, quiet awareness where you are completely present. You are existing without being pulled away by strong thoughts or heavy distractions. Thoughts are still going to arise, maybe a sound in the room, a brief physical sensation, a passing worry, but you simply let them pass without latching onto them. The actual goal is pure presence. It's being anchored firmly in the moment, not achieving a blank, empty void in your skull.
Which brings us to a vital distinction you absolutely have to understand: emptiness versus stillness. You cannot achieve emptiness. Your brain simply will not allow a vacuum. But the closest thing human beings can ever get to thinking nothing is achievable stillness. It is the profound difference between a mind that is entirely blank, which we know is impossible, and a mind that is at peace, which is entirely within your reach. Trying for emptiness is a fight against your own biology. Choosing stillness is working in perfect harmony with it.
And this brings us to our ultimate takeaway, and honestly, why this matters so much for your daily life. Since you now know that you can't stop the brain from doing its biological job of generating thoughts, the secret to a quiet mind when you're feeling overwhelmed by anxiety or racing ideas is simply changing your reaction to the noise. You just step back. You stop reacting to every single thought that crosses your mental screen. Imagine you're standing on a bridge, watching a river flow beneath you. That river is your stream of thoughts. You don't need to jump in and fight the current, and you definitely don't need to try to build a dam to stop the water. You just stand on the bridge and watch the leaves float by. You let the thoughts arrive, and you let them leave. And in that space of non-reaction, you will find something incredibly close to true silence.
So I want to leave you with a provocative question to reflect on today. Have you ever tried to think about absolutely nothing? And what actually happened in your mind when you tried? I would absolutely love to hear about your personal experiences with this. If this explainer made you notice your own thoughts a little differently today, or maybe gave you some practical tools for mental stillness, please hit that like button. Drop a comment below with your experience, share this explainer with a friend who might find it fascinating, and be sure to subscribe to the channel. We're going to keep exploring the incredible hidden behaviors of your mind. Thanks so much for learning with me today, and I'll see you in the next explainer.